that I have to introduce my company and also share my experience of starting a company in Taiwan as a French person, but also expanding in Europe, in Luxembourg. And I think it's also a very good moment to talk about space, because tomorrow is going to be the 50th anniversary of the first man on the moon. So I would like to bring you a bit with what Odyseus Space would like to do in the future, and of course later on to share a bit why Taiwan and why Luxembourg. So I don't know if you heard a bit, but US and many other countries want to go back to the moon 50 years after. But not only the moon, they are thinking about Mars, and they want to stay there in a cost-effective and sustainable way. And in order to do that, you cannot carry everything from Earth. It's not efficient, because 90% of a rocket, the mass is actually not used in space. Only 10% is actually the useful payload. Everything else is just gas and carburant to bring your satellite in space. So that's not sustainable. And what we think is that in order to have a sustainable space civilization, you need to find these resources in space and to use them in space. And Odyseus Space thinks that a good way to find these resources is asteroids. So I would like to start with a quote from Mark Twain. Mark Twain was a writer, American writer during the gold rush. And he actually noticed that the people who were making money, of course, were the people finding gold during the gold rush. But it was actually very risky. Not most of them actually failed. But you had smarter people. The smart people, actually what they did, they sold the tools. And it was less risky and as successful. So that's a bit what we are trying to do with Odyseus Space, is actually to help the miners of tomorrow to be successful by selling them the tools, but also the map. Because information is key. You need to know where is the most promising asteroid, where and how I can get these resources. So I would like to set up a few numbers. So already right now, today, the space resources market, it's $10 billion in the next 10 years, with accumulated average growth rate of at least 25%. So that's a very strong growth for the next 10 years, but of course, in the next 50 years. Currently, to go to an asteroid, the cheapest mission, so it's Hayabusa from JAXA, it's $500 million just to go to the asteroid and to take very small samples and to map the asteroid. So what we want to do is to reduce the cost of this space mission by a factor of 10 at least. So for the cost of one big mission, we could actually send 10 to more asteroids, to start to really map and gather data of many resources in the solar system. So of course it's very ambitious, it's very long term, so how do we get there? How do we start early to generate revenues? Well, the first phase of our roadmap actually started 3 years ago. So we are 3 French people from the space industry. We had all our network of people that we knew. So we started by doing what we already knew. So consulting, system engineering, project management for our customers in France, but also in Taiwan. So we started the company in Taiwan because it's a spin-off of Natural Technology University in Thailand. So that was our first customer. So we started the company in Thailand and we started to work for them. But then, of course, it's not enough. You generate revenues a bit, but you want more so that you can invest in R&D. So we started the first R&D contract in Thailand, but also we decided to open a branch in Luxembourg, because Luxembourg was very attractive when it came to space mining, and I will come back to this later. So then with a product that we develop in R&D, then we start to address Earth market. So we choose technologies where you have already a market around us, but then which will enable us later on to go to asteroids. So we find already a big early market which can then bring us to our asteroids. And then of course, when we go to asteroids, we gather data, we gather information, and that's actually what we will sell and where most of the revenue will be made. So, actually what we are doing is prospection, like typical mining industry on Earth. When you start to explore, take samples, and sell information, it's prospection. So currently, if you look at the life cycle of mining operation on Earth, the prospection cost is 1 to 2% of the total mining cost. We consider that in space, of course, because it's more difficult, this will represent between 5 and 7% of the total mining cost. So that would mean that on the 16,000 nearest asteroids, so that's the asteroids we think are reachable from Earth, that could be an average of $50 to $500 million per asteroid worth of that. I'm not talking about the resources, but just information. And when it comes to the resources, it's up to $1 tera US dollars resources value per asteroid. Up to, of course, some more, some less, but that's the average. So, for our company, of course, currently, in the next 5 years, most of the revenues will be by developing technologies and selling our technologies and products. But we expect that by 2030, most of our revenues will come from asteroids. And we'd like to precise also that currently we're also putting a step into Earth observation data, because we want to learn how you sell data, what customers expect in terms of quality of information, how do they process all this data. So that's why we have already a partnership with Access Space in Japan, because we want to learn already how it is made on Earth with remote sensing data, so that we can be prepared when we go to asteroids. So I will spend a bit of time to explain what we just started in Luxembourg. So that's the Cyclops optical communication system. So thanks to Luxembourg Space Agency, we sponsored this project, and, which is also managed with the European Space Agency. We are developing optical communication system for secure communications and also high data rate long range. So keep in mind that we want to go to asteroids, but once we go there, how do we send the data back to Earth? How can we make sure that nobody is going to steal our data? How can we make sure that we can sell for that the fact that we go to asteroids is not a waste of money, because someone is just going to steal all our hard work using it. So we developed this miniature optical communications, because optical communication in space that already exists, but what we want is to miniaturize so that we can use it on smaller platforms, cheaper platforms, and platforms that we are going to use for our asteroid missions in a cost-effective way. So currently, it's a prototype, it's a first project, but in the future we would like to upgrade it with quantum technology and cryptography, so that it becomes ultra secure and that we can also find a direct market on Earth to, for instance, transmit cryptographic keys between banks, between insurance companies, so that we could address a direct market in the next 10 years and then use it for a long-term plan of asteroid mining. So this is another technology, but this time it's in Taiwan. It's at Cheng Kung University, and this university has a strong expertise with plasma. And we are developing an attitude control system so that we can pinpoint very accurately. So keep in mind that we are also developing optical systems which requires very accurate. So what we want to do is to have this system to be a kind of assistant to the attitude control so that we can make sure that, for instance, a receiver and transmitter can align very accurately for very little. So I would like to also point out that we are looking for investments, obviously. We are looking for 5.5 million USD. So that would enable us to last for 36 months and make sure that our optical communication system and propulsion system are TRI 8, which means space qualified, so ready to be sent into space. So the team, I would like to highlight Jordan, the CEO, who actually studied for 10 years in Taiwan. So this is the reason why I'm here also, because he convinced me Taiwan could be a good opportunity to start the first space private company. And Marco, who is French as well as Jordan and me, and who joined us later on. So we started in 2016. Our first customers were 1 year later, where we were supporting mostly our customers. And then in 2018, we won our first contract with the Taiwan Space Agency, but also the Luxembourg Space Resources Award last October. And thanks to this award, then we were sponsored for first R&D project in Europe, and that decided, that's why I actually moved to Luxembourg. One of the reasons is because we won this award. And this year we are trying to move the headquarters to Luxembourg. So now Odyseus Space is a Taiwanese company. But the headquarters will be moved to Luxembourg because it makes more sense for us, since most of our R&D activities will be in Europe, but also most of the shareholders are European. So it's still very easy as a European. It's easier to do that in Luxembourg than me as a French person in Taiwan. So that's also one of the reasons we are doing this. So why Taiwan, why Luxembourg? So actually we figured out there were a lot of synergies between these two small countries. So we started in Taiwan mostly to have access to electronic manufacturers, to fast prototyping, to breadboard manufacturing. So the small satellites we are using, most of the components, they are not made for space. They are coming from laptops, they are coming from phones, and most of the major companies who are in phones and laptops, they are in Taiwan. So that did make sense, and that still makes sense for us to keep an office in Taiwan. Also, in the future, Asia will become one of the biggest markets for space. So where everybody open a space company in US or in Europe, we thought, well, let's go where nobody is going, so then at least we will have an edge later on. And then now we are moving back to Europe, to Luxembourg, because we want also to have an office closer to our European customers. So we do have a lot of customers in Netherlands, in France, and now we are working with the Luxembourg Space Agency and the European Space Agency. And there is a lot of space programs like Horizon 2020, European Space Agency. So we want to have access to this, so that makes sense for us. And why Luxembourg is because also that's the only country with the US which recognize that whatever resources you find in space, a private company can take the ownership of these resources. So that's very, very important for us, because this is giving a strong signal to our investors that whatever they invest in our companies, well, they can get the revenues later on. So nobody is going to say, oh, sorry, but what you're doing is not legal. So this is indeed the Space Resources.edu challenge that we won last October. I think the application for this year are closed, but for next year we can start to think about this. So typically we had to write an idea, which was of course taken from our business plan, how you can make use of space resources. Because Luxembourg is very, very innovative and having a long-term vision and taking really a stand in the fact that new space and private companies will be supported by the Luxembourg government to really explore and take ownership of space for the good of humankind. So this award gave us the opportunity to win 600,000 euro ESA contract, so a contract with the European Space Agency. So the Luxembourg Space Agency is financing this award, but we are contracted by the European Space Agency. What does it mean? It means that basically we have access to all the expertise of one of the biggest space agencies in the world. And that's really, really important for us. And I would like to finish also with, so that's a picture taken last week, because we actually kicked off our activities in Luxembourg last week at Technoport. And I would like to say that Technoport staff has been very, very helpful and understanding to help us setting up the companies there. So I would highly recommend to start your company at Technoport. So currently we have 4 people, 4 engineers, but we have 3 or 4 open positions at the moment in Europe, but also 1 in Taiwan. So growing, I would say, at a fast pace. And I would like to thank you for your time, and this is of course a small step for us now, but we will giant leap later on. Thank you very much.